Hello guys, and welcome to a new Star Division 2 video today by me, Eugen. In this one I have for you a first look at Festung Dünkirchen, a new division available in the upcoming Nemesis DLC, Siege of Dunkirk. As a disclaimer, Eugen has given me free access to the DLC, so a big thanks to them. Also, please remember that this is an early preview and work in progress, so what you see may be subject to change. If you'd like to read the description on the right hand side, please feel free to pause the video and take a look, but I'm going to be jumping straight on in. As usual, we'll be having a look at all of the new units available, so let's start in the Recon tab. So we start off with the classic motorcycle, 10 points, does give you radio, nice and quick, but lacks armor, a little bit unfortunate. 8 in phase A, 12 in phase B. Then we have the Aufklärer, the classic 2-man recon squad, 4, 8 and 12 availability. Their transports can be the Kubel MG, which would be my recommendation, and then the Traction, which is a nice fast option. Next we have the Spätrupp. We've seen these many times before. 4 strength with an MG34. You probably want to keep them on return fire, not reveal their position, unless you need that extra MG to do the job. You can bring them in with the Lafley, which does provide recon itself, so might be a nice option if you want some extra recon units. Then we have the classic Fusilier, the 9-man squad with MP40s, 6 Kar 98s and the MG34. Exceptional stealth, very high optics, do have the Haftladen, and 3, 6 and 9 availability in A, B and C. Transport's just the DMA trucks. And then finally, the unique unit in the Recon tab here, the KM Jagdkommando. They come with MP41s, Kar 98s and 2 MG34s. They also have the HE grenade at close range. They have the recon of very high and radio, also get exceptional stealth. So a pretty nice strength squad with some decent setup, so can put down suppression at range with the MG34s and can do damage at close range with the MP41s and the HE grenade. So that's a pretty solid squad, to be honest. 30 points, 3, 6 and 9 availability throughout the phases with 1 vet base. Moving on to the infantry tab, we start off with Ersatztruppen. 9-man squad, MP40, Kar 98s. You can only bring these in phase A, you get 18 on a card. Then we have the KM Landesschützen. These are a 10-man squad with 9 Carcanos and the FM 2429. They can come in A and B, 12 and 24 availability. Disheartened infantry, just kind of throw away infantry for the front line, honestly. Then we have some Luftwaffenjäger, again disheartened, MP40s, 7 Kar 98s and an MG15. They come in A, B or C, 12, 18 and 24 for their availability. No interesting transports so far either. Then we have the Stoßtruppen. These are a 5-man squad with 3 MP40s, 2 MP28s, a Panzerfaust and the close range HE. These could be pretty useful early on. You're bringing them in Kubels, zoom them up to contested positions, and you can get a nice HE down early on with these to enemy infantry squads that might be trying to contest. The Panzerfaust can take out enemy vehicles that are getting too close, half tracks, things like that. So it might be a nice ambushing unit early on. Then we have the Festungsgrenadier. These are using Labels and the FM 2429, 15-man squad, disheartened, 12 in phase A, 24 in phase B. So a lot of disheartened infantry so far. Next up we have the Grenadiers. There are 2 cards of these available and they come 9, 18 and 27 in availability. Base no vet. They've got MP40s, the 7 Kar 98s and the MG34, so nothing different about them, just your standard Grenadiers. Then we have the Grenadiers with Panzerfaust, which are pretty much the same. They just have the Panzerfaust available. They have less availability on their cards, so 8 in A and 16 in B, as opposed to 9 in A and 18 in B. And that's the main difference between the two squads, other than, of course, the Panzerfaust. Then we have the KM Marine Infanterie, which come with the MP28s and the Kar 98s, and then the MG 0815. You can get 9 in A, 15 in B, and 27 in C. So decent availability and strength, but their weapons obviously lacking, and they do get the AT there as well. Next up, we have the Luftwaffe Flakkampftruppen, which are a disheartened 8-man squad. You can get 8 in A, 16 in B, and 24 in C, but they do have a Panzerschreck. So this is potentially a nice sort of close-range support squad to provide that Panzerschreck as AT. Obviously not going to do too much against infantry due to their lackluster weapons, but the Panzerschreck certainly makes these somewhat of an option. Next up, we have the Pionierführer, which come with the HE grenade as a leader. I generally prefer to bring in the Grenführer, which is another option that you have. But the Pionierführer can only be brought in phase A, and then the Grenführer, you can bring that in A, B, or C with that base 1 vet. But yeah, the Grenführer, I really like smoke on leaders because it allows them to stay alive in situations where they're getting shot, and then you keep the veterancy on the surrounding units, which is very, very important. If you lose veterancy on surrounding units, especially if you're making an aggressive move, it can cost you a lot of men because you're a lot less resilient overall. So keeping your leaders alive is very, very important. So yeah, Pionierführer, Grenführer available. Then we have some KM Jagdpioneer. These are an 8-man squad with a flamethrower. So 4 available in A, 8 available in B. They come in base vet 1. The overall availability is kind of low on these, especially considering their weapons aren't that great. The MG28 and the Kar 98s aren't fantastic. It's just the Flammenwerfer that makes them a decent close-range infantry squad. They also get smoke, which is kind of a nice extra bonus, but probably won't be too handy in the situation that you're usually using them in. But maybe they can give themselves cover when trying to cross open ground, which is something, I suppose. And there's the KM Pioneer, which has the Panzerschreck. This is a classic squad. 2 MP28s, 6 Kar 98s. They get the HE grenade and the Panzerschreck. Availability is 5, 10, and 15 at base vet, like no vet. I think they're okay. Again, another way to supplement Panzerschrecks into your division. Then there's the Luftwaffeführer. You can bring these in A, B, and C. Pretty much the same stats as the Grenführer, just different uniforms, pretty much. Then we have the Pioneer Squad. The 2 MP40s, 7 Kar 98s, MG34, and the HE grenade. 5, 10, and 15 available. Seen these many times. Then we have the KM Führer, 2 MP28s, 4 Kar 98s, the 2 MG34s, and smoke. For an 8-man squad with smoke, these are actually pretty nice leaders for 30 points. The 30 points might make them a little bit expensive in comparison to some of the others, but you do get basically double strength of like your standard Grenführer, for example, for an extra 5 points. So that's not too bad in my opinion. And the KM Führer also has double MG34, which allows them to put down some decent suppression at range if you need it. Finally, we have one of the best units, well, probably the best infantry unit in this division, which is the Jagdkampf. These are very nice indeed. They get 4 MP40s, 6 G43s, and 2 MG42s. This combination alone at range is super strong. The G43s with the MG42s, they put down so much damage and suppression. Very, very nice. And then on top of that, they get a Panzerschreck. So they can deal with like enemy armor very well. It's like having the Panzergrans from, I think it's Panzerlehr. They get the Panzerschrecks now as well. It's very, very nice to have a Panzerschreck on like your long-range infantry like this, because you can kind of pin down infantry, and then you can kind of go hide, and if the enemy is trying to use vehicles to counter your suppression, then you can just pop them with the Panzerdragon. 12-man squad, very, very nice. So you can get 6 in A, 12 in B, 18 in C. There's 2 cards available of these, and just standard transports otherwise. But this is, yeah, very, very nice indeed. Then we have the tank tab. Tank tab, pretty anemic, just some leftover Panzer IVs and Stugs. You can bring them in phase A or B. Panzer IV-H comes 5 in A, 10 in B. Standard 75mm gun with the 135mm of penetration at 1,750 meter range. Does have HE with 2 MG34s, so can obviously help with infantry quite well. Only 75mm of frontal armor. Then you have the Stug 3, same 75mm gun with the MG34 there. Slightly better frontal armor. And I think their vet is generally better. Yeah, so you can get like 2 vet Stugs in phase A, and you can only get 3 vet Panzer IVs in phase A. So you're going to have to make good use of these for sure, but you're probably going to want general availability to be higher as you are bringing these in. Moving on to the support tab, we have first of all the Flammenwerfer. Classic 2-man flamer squad, can be brought in with the BMW, Kubel and the Traction, which is actually really nice. So bringing these in with the Tractions will allow you to get them into really sneaky positions early on and catch out enemy units. Then there's the 50mm mortars, which can also be brought up with the Traction if you want it. 5, 10 and 15 availability for the Flammenwerfer, it was 6 and 9. Then we have the KM Küsten Polizei. These are 2 MP28, 5 mass, and the FM2429 squads. They got the 15 points, 4, 6, and 8 military police trait. Get very good stealth. It's an interesting squad. Like the outfits, very cool. But in terms of actual fighting capability, it's trash. Can be good though for the amount of disheartened infantry that you have in the infantry tab, so that would be the reason that you probably might want to bring these potentially. Then we have the MG08 as a machine gun option, first machine gun option. You can bring in 6, 12 or 18 at base 1 vet. The transports do include the Traction, so if you brought it in the early game, that might be worth it if you wanted to get them into a good position. But overall, not a great machine gun. Then we have the MG271, which it's okay. It's got the 1,250 meter range. You can get 5, 10 and 15 available for these. So, you know, an MG option, but a better MG option, the MG34. Which you can bring in A, B or C with 6, 12 and 18 availability. So that would be my preferred choice. Then we have the IG-18 available as well. 1,500 meter range HE support with a heat round, which has 75mm of penetration. Not too bad. But this unit right here is very interesting. The Kampf Plafet. It is a ground-based 20mm with 45mm of penetration at 1,250 meter range. So this thing can actually deal relatively well with light armor. It's going to struggle obviously against medium armor. Anything with a decent amount of side armor won't really be affected by it as well. But yeah, overall, pretty cool unit. Unique unit that can pump out some damage onto infantry at the same time. Yeah, very nice. Gonna have to keep an eye on these. Then we have the Opel Blitz trucks. There's 3 cards available, 2, 4, 6. Standard stuff. You can get a card of IG-33s, which is pretty big. IG-33s are very, very strong units due to their very good HE round that can fire 2,000 meter range and has 7.5 damage, 3, 6 and 9 availability on those. Then we have the commanders. So we got the commander on the motorcycle, the commander in the traction, or we can have the commandant on the ground. Moving on to the anti-tank tab. First of all, we have the Panzerschreck teams. There are 3 cards available, 4, 8 and 12 availability. The Panzerschreck always great because of its 90% accuracy and 200mm of penetration. It's heat penetration as well, making it very, very reliable. The exceptional stealth there, of course, great on the 2-man team. So Panzerschreck's fantastic. Pack 36s, also pretty damn good. You can get 6 of these in Phase A at 2 vet. And they come with the beautiful heat rocket that has the 180mm of penetration. The accuracy is relatively low on these, but if they hit, they kill, generally speaking. And the range of 750 meters is considerably better than a Panzerschreck at 250 meters, while still maintaining a heat projectile with 180mm of penetration. That's why these are so nice. Then there's the Marder 3 available in Phase 8. You can get 4 with no vet, 2 with 2 vet, which is actually not too bad. They come with basically a mounted ZIS 3, which comes with 1,500 meter range, 130mm of penetration. Not too shabby. Then the Pack 38 is also a choice in Phase 8. It does come with the APCR with 150mm of penetration at 1,000 meter range. The accuracy on the APCR is very good. Otherwise, the AP shell has 100mm penetration at 1,500 meters range. And you can upvet these quite easily. There's 2 cards of Pack 40s available. Your classic Pack 40 with the 190mm penetration APCR and 145mm AP shell with very decent range. They come in 3, 5 and 8, and there's 2 cards available, but you might have spotted the Jagdpanther, and there is only a single Jagdpanther available for this division. It comes in at Phase A with 2 veterancy, which is actually very nice. Can certainly be a force to be reckoned with, but you're going to want to keep it safe throughout the game. Moving on, we have the anti-air tab. Starting off with the 20mm Flak 38. It's not good on its own, but once you start to get more of them, they can become quite strong, especially if you take them at higher veterancy. If they could come with like a 20mm half track or something, they would definitely be even better. But in this case, only the Kubel, DMA and Lafley are available. Then we've got the Flak 4337. Always bring these in with at least 1 base vet if you're going to use them. I think they're just way better, and you can make them 3 vet, which actually gives them some decent killing power. So yeah, decently strong AA there. There is also the 40mm Bofors, captured Bofors, so that's another option. I'm not sure if I'd prefer the Flak or the Bofors, honestly. Both are pretty good. In this case, the Flak 43 is just a little bit cheaper, but you can get 3, 6 and 9 available. There's 2 cards of these as well. I would recommend 1 vetting them at least, though. Yeah, Bofors with German crews. And there's the 88. It's like a Soviet 88. Not sure. But either way, it does come 2 in Phase A, 4 in B, and 6 in C. Going to be decent for dealing with incoming fighter bombers at range and also enemy bombers in general. It does have a 150mm penetration on its AP shells with 40% accuracy, which is really not too bad. Can be brought in with the Multia, the SDK of Z7, or the Lafley. Next up, we have the Flakvilling. The Flakvilling is very good indeed. So you can get 2 in A, 4 in B, and 6 in C. Fantastic anti-air for taking out fighters and fighter bombers, and then can also do decent DPS to bombers as well. So Flakvilling, always a great choice. Then we have the Flak 4188. your classic long-range AA. Does have a 160mm penetration AP shell with 40% accuracy, making it slightly better than the M31 that they have. 2, 4, and 6 available. Transports, Multias, STK-FZ7, and the Lafley. Finally, they do get access to the Flak 38 105mm AA, which is a beast of an AA. It does an absolute ton of damage to aircraft if it hits, and it also has a really nasty AP shell with 205mm of penetration with 40% accuracy. So you do not want to be bumping head-on into one of these, but availability a little bit low. You get 1, 2, or 4 available on these. There is, however, 2 cards available. Moving on to the artillery tab, we first have the Beobachter, your classic 2-man spotter unit with smoke grenade, give you the radio for your artillery. Then there's the Battleführer, classic artillery leaders to supplement your infantry tab if you run out of space. Then, first of all, we have the FK30 76.5mm. Has a very long barrel. I haven't tested if this reduces its dispersion, but it might be interesting to try. 48 shells, not too bad. Decent rate of fire as well, and the damage isn't terrible. So, yeah, might be something worth trying, but no radio option on it. 81mm rocket. Or rockets, mortar, 81mm mortar. You get 4 in A, 8 in B, 12 in C. You've got the LEFH 105. This does come with a radio, so you're going to be able to get some nice pinpoint accuracy. Just make sure you have your radios from your leaders set up, or your recon, or however else you plan to set it up, either the Beobachter, Battleführer, that kind of thing. I think the LEFH 105, it can be useful in some situations, but most of the time I'd rather just go for heavy artillery or mortars. You do get 3 cards of 120mm mortars, which is quite cool, but they don't have radio. So you're probably going to need sort of a critical mass of 120mm to really get a decent amount done with them, which is usually like 3 or 4 before anything really starts happening. And you get 2 on a card in phase A, 4 in B, and 8 in C. Then there is the big guns. Here we go, the GPFs, the captured French big artillery. 155mm of pain, 7.75 damage. Does have radio capability. You get 1 in phase A, 2 in B, and 4 in C. Also can be brought in with the multi-ammunition truck to keep themselves supplied, so nice combination. Finally, for the artillery tab, we have off-map. So off-map actually been relatively rare in some of the latest DLCs in Star Division 2, but we have it here. And the first one is the 164mm artillery, which I think has 3 strikes. If I were to guess, it comes in at phase A, B, or C, and you get like 1, 2, or 3 based on the phase that you bring it in. Next up, we have the 194mm off map, again with the Kubel there, 1, 2, and 3 available. And this is naval gun support. So pretty big artillery, 194mm of course. And it looks like you probably get 3 salvos as well, since it says 90 shells. Usually it says like X3 next to the name, so you know exactly how many shots you're getting. But in this case it's not telling us, and I haven't checked it in game. Alright, moving on, we have the air tab. The air tab's pretty anemic. There are only a few options. First of all, the ME410 recon aircraft, which is only 35 points. You get 2 in A or 4 in B at 1 base vet. Then there is the AR196A3, which is a float plane. Pretty cool. No bombs though on it, which makes this quite expensive for what it is, considering the ME410's like way better as a recon. It's faster. It's got medium resilience, whereas this is slower and has bad resilience. I'm surprised this is more expensive, but obviously subject to change. I reckon these kinds of biplanes will get a price buff at some point. Then we have the Ju-88G1, and this does have 4 20 mils. See them under there, and yeah, it might be okay in a head-on. It might be okay for getting on the back of bombers, slower bombers, but otherwise in a dogfight it's just going to lose against enemy fighters, so do bear that in mind. 2 available in Phase A, 4 available in Phase B. And then next up we have the Ju-88A4s. You can get 2 in Phase B, 4 in Phase C. Gets 4 250 kilogram bombs, 385 km/h speed with very good resilience. Honestly, Ju-88s are relatively reliable bombers because they tend to drop their bombs unless there's like an abundance of AA. But this payload is relatively light. You're probably better off going with the DO-217, which comes with 2 1,000 kilogram bombs. You get 1 in B or 2 in C. And with 400 speed and very good resilience, it's a pretty nice choice. A pretty nice choice indeed. And that's your lot really for Festung Dünkirchen. An interesting division that has some relatively good options for long-range fire support between like the Flak 88s, the IG, that kind of thing, but will struggle to push due to its lack of armor. So Panzer IVs and Stugs being in limited supply, and your aircraft being relatively thin. What you can probably do is create a creeping barrage though. It's going to be definitely important that you find good artillery superiority, and you make sure you work on your counter battery to keep that the case throughout the game. Otherwise you are definitely going to struggle. An interesting division. And if you'd like the code, I'll make sure to leave a link to the Battlegroup codes in the description. But otherwise, on screen, you can see a deck that I made earlier. That's all for now. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.